The view from Sentinel Station 7 was breathtaking and apocalyptic. Marcus Kane stared out of the observation window, a mug of coffee cradled in his hands, as the last fragments of Earth shimmered in the vast blackness of space. Clouds of pulverized rock, molten metal, and debris spiraled outward, catching the light of the distant sun. It was almost beautiful, in the way a train wreck might be, horrifying, inevitable, and yet impossible to look away from. The holographic display next to him flickered to life, casting an eerie glow across the dim room. The smug face of the Zeroth Supreme Commander, Grazak Tor, loomed large. His deep blue exoskeleton glinted under alien lights, his mandibles twitching in what passed for a grin among his species. "People of the galaxy," the alien began, his voice booming across every available frequency. "Today we celebrate the end of chaos. The human homeworld has been neutralized. Their reckless creativity, their unchecked adaptability, threats to galactic stability are no more." Marcus took a slow, deliberate sip from his coffee. The bitter taste grounded him, though his mind buzzed with disbelief and dark humor. He muttered, "Neutralized? Try annihilated. At least have the guts to call it what it is, you cockroach cosplayer." Behind him, the faint hum of the station's AI Lex buzzed to life. Its voice was calm, polite, and utterly at odds with the devastation outside. "Commander Kane, I detect an increase in your heart rate. Would you like a sedative?" Marcus snorted. "I'd like a planet back, Lex. Can you manage that?" "Unfortunately, no," the AI replied. "However, I can prepare another cup of coffee. Based on available stores, you have approximately 87 cups remaining before the station is depleted." "Wonderful," Marcus said dryly. "We'll toast to the end of humanity with instant coffee." The Zeroth commander continued his speech, his mandibles clicking with self-satisfaction. "Humanity's destructive influence on the galaxy has been contained. Their colonies, scattered and isolated, will wither without the resources of their homeworld. Let this be a lesson to all. Defiance is futile." Marcus resisted the urge to hurl his mug at the hologram. Instead, he watched as the alien diplomats on the broadcast clapped their various appendages in applause. The Zeroth, seated smugly at the head of the Galactic Council, drank in the adulation like a narcissistic demigod. "Defiance is futile," Marcus mimicked under his breath, his tone acidic. "Sure, because nothing motivates us like being told we can't win." He swiped at the holographic controls, shutting off the broadcast. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the soft ping of incoming data on the station's monitors. Lex spoke again, this time with a note of curiosity. "Commander Kane, would you like to review the colony status reports?" "Hit me," Marcus said, setting his coffee down and walking over to the command console. Screens flickered to life, each displaying data from the surviving human colonies: Mars, Europa, Titan, and the asteroid mining outposts. "Mars Base Alpha," Lex began, "reports a 78% survival rate among its population. Primary resources remain intact, though morale is suboptimal." Marcus smirked grimly. "Morale's suboptimal? Earth's a debris field, Lex. That's the understatement of the century. Europa Station reports successful containment of their water reserves, but their oxygen production systems are at 53% capacity. Titan reports no significant damage, though their terraforming project is now indefinitely delayed." "And the mining outposts?" Marcus asked, his voice sharpening. "Still operational. Their leaders are requesting immediate guidance." Marcus leaned heavily on the console, staring at the endless streams of data. His mind raced, cycling between despair and determination. The Zeroth had delivered a knockout punch, sure, but the fight wasn't over. Not yet. "Lex," he said after a long pause, "broadcast a message to all colonies. Secure channels only." "Message content?" Lex asked. Marcus thought for a moment, then grinned. It was a bitter, defiant smile, the kind born of desperation and a refusal to quit. "Tell them this: Earth is gone, but we're not. We're still here, and as long as we're here, we've got a shot." "Message relayed," Lex confirmed. "Would you like to attach a motivational quote or a meme?" Marcus chuckled despite himself. Not this time, Lex. The station shuddered faintly, a reminder of its own precarious orbit. Marcus knew the Zeroth assumed humanity was beaten, scattered, a remnant not worth pursuing. That was their first mistake. The second, thinking humans needed Earth to fight back. Lex, pull up all the data we've got on the Zeroth fleet, Marcus commanded. I want to know their weaknesses, their supply chains, everything. Accessing now, Lex replied. This will take some time. In the meantime, may I suggest resting? Your cortisol levels are elevated. Not a chance, Marcus muttered, pacing the room. Rest later. Planning now. The faint hum of the station's life support systems filled the silence. Outside, the fragments of Earth continued to drift, glinting like morbid jewels in the vastness of space. Marcus stared at them, his chest tightening. He thought of the billions lost, the lives snuffed out in an instant. Friends, family, the smell of rain on Earth's soil, all of it gone. But anger quickly replaced grief. Anger and something else, spite. If the Zeroth thought humanity would roll over, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Lex, Marcus said, his voice steely, begin drafting a plan for colony-wide coordination. And find me the leaders of Mars and Europa. I want them on a call yesterday. Understood. Compiling resources now. Marcus picked up his mug, drained the last bitter dregs of coffee, and set it down with a decisive clink. The Zeroth thought they'd crushed humanity's spirit, that Earth's destruction was the end. But Earth wasn't humanity. Humanity was ingenuity, resilience, and a deeply unhinged capacity for turning adversity into opportunity. They think they've won, Marcus muttered to himself, staring out at the stars. But they haven't seen what we can do when we're really pissed off. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, the Zeroth were celebrating their victory. For Marcus, that celebration was fuel for the fire. Because humans weren't just survivors. They were comeback artists. And this comeback, it was going to be one for the ages. Marcus Kane sat in the dimly lit command room of Sentinel Station 7, the glow of holographic screens casting jagged shadows across the walls. His coffee mug, now empty, sat beside a pile of scribbled notes and schematics. Humanity's survival depended on more than just luck. It demanded ingenuity, audacity, and the kind of creativity that bordered on madness. Luckily, those were things humanity had in abundance. Lex, Marcus said, his voice steady. Status on the colony conference? Connections established, the AI replied. Leaders from Mars, Europa, Titan, and the asteroid belt are on standby. Put them through. The screen shimmered and 4 faces appeared. Colonel Elias, the grizzled leader of Mars Base Alpha, Dr. Patel, Europa's lead researcher, Director Vaughn, the resourceful head of the asteroid mining colonies, and Commander Lin, Titan's head of operations. Each carried the same expression, a mixture of exhaustion, grief, and the flickering determination of people who refused to give up. Marcus leaned forward. Glad you could join me, gentlemen. Not like we had much of a choice, Elias grunted, his voice gravelly. Earth's gone. If we don't figure something out, we're next. Agreed, Lin said, his sharp features illuminated by the faint glow of Titan's volcanic surface behind him. The Zeroth think we're broken. We need to prove them wrong. We don't just need survival, Patel interjected, his tone calm but laced with steel. We need revenge. Vaughn raised an eyebrow. Revenge is nice and all, but what exactly are we working with here? Last I checked, we're running on scraps. Mining lasers, terraforming tools, and duct tape. Marcus allowed a small wry smile. Scraps are all we need. Elias folded his arms, skeptical. Care to elaborate, Kane? The Zeroth see us as a nuisance, not a threat, Marcus began, his voice gaining momentum. That's their mistake. They think we're out of options. But what they don't realize is that humanity's greatest weapon has always been our ability to turn nothing into something. Improvisation is our specialty. Lin smirked. You're saying we MacGyver our way out of this? Exactly, Marcus said, his eyes gleaming. We weaponize everything. Mining drones, terraforming equipment, even cleaning supplies. Anything that can move, shoot, or make noise can be turned against them. Patel's lips twitched into a faint smile. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Marcus said. "The Zeroth destroyed Earth. That means they've forced us into a corner, and there's nothing more dangerous than a cornered human." Vaughn leaned back, thoughtful. "All right, let's say we do this. Where do we start?" Marcus activated another screen displaying a blueprint of a standard mining drone. "These little guys," he said, pointing at the image. "We retrofit them with plasma cutters, add some maneuvering thrusters, and program them to swarm. If we synchronize their movements, they can act like a hive." Lynn frowned. "You're talking about weaponized drones?" "I'm talking about murder hornets in space," Marcus corrected, grinning. "And that's just the beginning." The room fell silent for a moment, the absurdity of the idea hanging in the air. Then Elias barked out a laugh. "Hell, why not? It's not like we've got anything better to do." Patel nodded. "I'll start working on modifying Europa's ice drills. If we can weaponize their plasma jets, we'll have short-range cannons that can punch through Zeroth hulls." "I'll see what we can do with the terraforming equipment," Lynn added. "Localized storms inside their ships could be interesting." "And I've got plenty of mining lasers," Vaughn said. "Might as well add some strobe lights and classical music for psychological warfare." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Classical music?" Vaughn smirked. "Ever seen an alien try to make sense of Beethoven's Fifth played at full volume while dodging lasers? Trust me, it'll mess with their heads." "All right, then," Marcus said, his grin widening. "Let's get to work." The meeting ended, and Marcus returned to his console, adrenaline coursing through his veins. For the first time since Earth's destruction, he felt a flicker of hope. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were planning, fighting back. And if there was one thing Marcus knew, it was that humans fought dirty. "Lex," he said, his voice sharp, "send out a message to all civilian networks. I want every engineer, coder, and mechanic working on retrofitting whatever they can get their hands on. Tell them to be creative." "Message sent," Lex confirmed. "May I suggest a team name for this initiative?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" "Operation Cockroach," the AI replied, "based on humanity's remarkable ability to survive apocalyptic scenarios." Marcus chuckled. "Fitting. Let's roll with it." Hours turned into days as the colonies worked tirelessly to prepare. On Mars, Colonel Elias oversaw the transformation of agricultural drones into mobile artillery units. On Europa, Patel's team tested plasma-powered ice cannons, blasting chunks of ice into orbit with terrifying precision. On Titan, Lynn's engineers modified atmospheric processors to create microstorms capable of frying electronics. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Vaughn's mining drones were being outfitted with laser cutters, electromagnetic pulse generators, and, at his insistence, speakers. The first test run featured a swarm of drones performing an eerily synchronized attack pattern to Flight of the Bumblebee. The results were both deadly and hilarious. Back on Sentinel Station 7, Marcus monitored the progress with a growing sense of pride. The Zeroth had underestimated humanity's capacity for chaos. That would be their undoing. "Lex," he said, sipping another cup of coffee. "Status update?" "Progress is remarkable," the AI reported. "Mars has completed 63% of their retrofitting. Europa's plasma cannons are operational. Titan's storm generators have passed initial tests, and the asteroid belt is playing the final countdown while arming their drones." Marcus shook his head, laughing softly. "Of course they are." "Additionally," Lex continued, "intercepted Zeroth communications indicate growing confusion. Their scouts report aggressive Earth debris attacking in synchronized formations." Marcus smirked. "Debris, huh? Let's keep them guessing." As the days passed, the colonies began to coordinate small strikes against isolated Zeroth vessels. Each attack was more bizarre than the last, mining drones dancing in formation, plasma cannons firing to the beat of Stayin' Alive, and glitter bombs clogging air filters. The Zeroth, used to orderly warfare, were utterly unprepared. One intercepted Zeroth report read, "Human behavior patterns, erratic and incomprehensible. Tactical recommendations, Avoid direct engagement until further analysis. Marcus read the report aloud to the team leaders during their next conference. The laughter on the call was the first genuine sound of joy any of them had heard in weeks. "They're scared of us," Elias said, shaking his head. "And we haven't even gotten started," Marcus grinned. "Then let's give them something to really be scared of." The asteroid belt shimmered with activity as Marcus Kane watched a tactical feed from Sentinel Station 7. Swarms of repurposed mining drones moved in perfect synchronization, their thrusters firing in brief, precise bursts. Plasma cutters glowed faintly, creating a hauntingly beautiful light show against the darkness of space. The drones were on their way to intercept another Zeroth scout ship, the third one this week. "They're going to regret underestimating us," Marcus muttered, gripping the edge of the console. He tapped a button. "Lex, any updates from the colonies?" Colonel Elias reports that Mars Base Alpha has completed modifications to their weather control systems, Lex replied, the AI's voice calm and professional. "They are currently testing their ability to generate localized lightning storms inside Zeroth ships." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Localized lightning storms?" "Indeed," Lex continued. "Initial results suggest the storms are both highly effective and, as Director Vaughn described, visually spectacular." Marcus smirked. "Of course he did. What about Europa?" "Dr. Patel's plasma cannons are fully operational. His team has also developed a new weapon using their atmospheric pressure systems, what they're calling the boom sonic cannon." Marcus leaned forward, intrigued. "Explain." "The cannon uses low-frequency sound waves to destabilize Zeroth ship hulls. They are currently testing its effects with a playlist of Earth electronic music, including a track labeled Dubstep Overload." Marcus shook his head, laughing softly. "Weaponized dubstep. Humanity, ladies and gentlemen." The tactical feed pinged, drawing his attention back to the asteroid belt. The mining drones had reached their target. The Zeroth scout ship was sleek and angular, its hull glowing faintly with a blue energy field. The drones didn't hesitate. In unison, they launched their attack, lasers carving precise patterns into the ship's shields. The speakers mounted on the drones blared "Flight of the Bumblebee" at full volume, the chaotic melody echoing through the void. The Zeroth ship tried to retaliate, its weapon systems firing wildly at the swarm, but the drones moved too quickly. Their coordinated movements seemed random at first glance, but Marcus could see the deliberate patterns in their attack. Within minutes, the scout ship's shields collapsed. Plasma cutters pierced the hull, leaving the vessel dead in space. "Another one bites the dust," Marcus said, leaning back in his chair. He tapped a button on his console, connecting to Director Vaughn in the asteroid belt. "Nice work, Vaughn. How are the drones holding up?" Vaughn appeared on the screen, his face illuminated by the glow of a dozen holographic displays. "Barely a scratch," he said, grinning. "These little guys are tougher than they look. I've already got the engineers adding more firepower for the next batch." "Good," Marcus replied. "We'll need it. The Zeroth won't keep sending scouts forever. Sooner or later, they'll send something bigger." "They can send whatever they want," Vaughn said. "We've got surprises waiting for them." That was an understatement. Across the solar system, humanity was turning everyday tools into weapons of war. On Mars, Colonel Elias's team had successfully weaponized terraforming machines, creating storms that could fry electronics and blind sensors. On Europa, Dr. Patel's plasma cannons and boom sonic cannon were ready for large-scale deployment. And on Titan, Commander Lin's engineers had developed a fleet of drones capable of delivering tear gas to enemy ships, a tactic Lin called spicy air warfare. The Zeroth had no idea what they were walking into. The first major test of humanity's ingenuity came 2 days later. A Zeroth cruiser, significantly larger than the scout ships, appeared on the edge of the asteroid belt. Its hull bristled with weaponry, and its shields pulsed with an ominous blue light. Marcus watched the tactical feed with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "Lex," he said, "what's the status of our defenses?" "All systems operational," the AI replied. "Director Vaughn's drones are in position. Dr. Patel's plasma cannons are ready to fire from Europa. Colonel Elias's storm generators are on standby." "Good," Marcus said. "Let's give them a proper welcome." The Zeroth cruiser advanced slowly, its scanners sweeping the asteroid belt. It fired a few warning shots, plasma beams slicing through the void. The mining drones held their position, silent and still. Then, at Marcus's command, they sprang to life. Hundreds of drones swarmed the cruiser, their plasma cutters glowing like fireflies in the darkness. The speakers on the drones blared the final countdown, the melody rising to a triumphant crescendo as the attack began. The cruiser's weapons fired in every direction, trying to target the tiny machines, but the drones were too fast. They danced around the ship, slicing into its shields with precision and fury. "Europa, you're up," Marcus said. On his screen, Dr. Patel nodded. "Firing plasma cannons now." Beams of superheated plasma shot out from Europa's surface, striking the Zeroth cruiser with pinpoint accuracy. The ship's shields flickered and died, leaving its hull vulnerable. The drones took full advantage, cutting into the ship with surgical precision. "Now for the grand finale," Marcus said. "Mars, unleash the storm." On Mars, Colonel Elias stood in a control room, watching a massive weather control device come to life. The machine hummed with power, generating a swirling vortex of energy. Moments later, the vortex was transmitted across space, appearing inside the Zeroth cruiser. Lightning arced through the ship, frying its electronics and disabling its engines. The ship drifted helplessly, its crew scrambling to regain control. Back on Sentinel Station 7, Marcus couldn't help but grin. They wanted chaos? Let's give them chaos. The drones swarmed the crippled cruiser one final time, carving a message into its hull with their plasma cutters. The message was simple, but effective. "You're next." The Zeroth cruiser limped away, its crew too terrified to continue the mission. Marcus knew it wouldn't be long before the Zeroth sent reinforcements, but that didn't matter. Humanity had sent a message of their own, loud and clear. They weren't going down without a fight. In the days that followed, the resistance intensified. Small strikes turned into larger operations, each one more creative and audacious than the last. The Zeroth, used to orderly warfare, were thrown into chaos. Their ships were attacked by cleaning drones playing Stayin' Alive. Their communication networks were flooded with memes, crashing their translation software. Their scouts were lured into ambushes with fake distress signals. On one occasion, a Zeroth captain reported being attacked by what appeared to be weaponized golf carts. The report was dismissed as an error, but Marcus knew the truth. Humanity was turning the galaxy's greatest military power into a laughingstock. "Lex," Marcus said one evening, sipping another cup of coffee, "what's the status of the Zeroth fleet?" "Intercepted communications indicate significant confusion and frustration," Lex replied. One commander described the situation as a tactical nightmare. Marcus grinned. "Good. Let's keep it that way." Marcus Kane stood in the command center of Sentinel Station 7, his coffee steaming on the console beside him. The glow of holographic displays painted his face with shifting hues of blue and green. The tactical feed from the asteroid belt flickered before him, showing the remnants of the most recent skirmish. The Zeroth cruiser had limped away, its hull scarred and its crew likely questioning their life choices. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were winning. "Lex," he said, his voice sharp with anticipation, "any updates from our colonies?" The AI's calm, synthetic voice responded immediately. "Mars Base Alpha has completed additional modifications to their weather control systems. Colonel Elias reports the ability to generate sustained storms capable of disrupting Zeroth capital ships." "Good. What about Europa?" "Dr. Patel's team has successfully scaled up the boom sonic cannon," Lex said. "He has requested permission to deploy it during the next operation." Marcus smirked. "Tell him he has my blessing. And Titan?" "Commander Lin's spicy air warfare drones are operational and awaiting deployment. Their chemical payloads have been tested against simulated Zeroth biosignatures with promising results." "Perfect," Marcus said, his grin widening. "Tell everyone to prepare. We're about to make a statement." The screen shifted, displaying a map of the solar system. Zeroth reinforcements had arrived, 2 capital ships and a half-dozen cruisers moving in formation. Their presence was a clear escalation, a sign that the enemy was taking humanity seriously. That was exactly what Marcus had been waiting for. "They brought out the big guns," he muttered, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Lex, open a channel to the colony leaders. Let's show these bugs what happens when you poke the hornet's nest." The screen filled with familiar faces: Colonel Elias from Mars, Dr. Patel from Europa, Director Vaughn from the asteroid belt, and Commander Lin from Titan. Each carried the same expression, a mix of grim determination and barely contained excitement. "We've got a situation," Marcus began. "The Zeroth have sent reinforcements, capital ships, cruisers, the works." Elias leaned forward, his grizzled face illuminated by the tactical feed. "About damn time. I was starting to get bored." "Patel," Marcus said, turning to the scientist, "is the boom sonic cannon ready?" Patel's face split into a mischievous grin. "Ready and eager. We've calibrated it to deliver maximum structural damage with minimal power consumption. Also, we added a subwoofer." Marcus blinked. "A subwoofer?" "Dubstep wasn't hitting hard enough without it," Patel explained. "Trust me, you'll see." Marcus shook his head, chuckling. "Fine. Lin, what about your drones?" Commander Lin nodded, his sharp features set in a confident smirk. "Fully operational. Our drones are loaded with tear gas canisters and ready to deploy. We're calling it Operation Spicy Surprise." Vaughn cut in, his voice laced with amusement. "And my murder hornets are itching to dance. We've upgraded the drone AI to execute more complex formations. Think Nutcracker Suite, but with lasers." "Excellent," Marcus said, his grin widening. "Here's the plan. We're going to hit them where it hurts. Fast, coordinated strikes across multiple fronts. Elias, your storms will disable their cruisers. Patel, you'll take out their capital ships. Lin, keep their smaller ships busy with your drones. Vaughn, you'll lead the swarm. And me, I'll make sure the Zeroth know exactly who's behind this." The leaders nodded, their expressions fierce. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but they weren't just fighting back. They were making a spectacle of it. The Zeroth fleet entered the asteroid belt cautiously, their ships scanning the field for any signs of ambush. Their commander, Admiral Rektok, stood on the bridge of the lead capital ship, his mandibles clicking in irritation. "Report!" Rektok barked, his voice sharp. "Scanners detect anomalous activity," a tactical officer replied. "Energy signatures consistent with human mining equipment." "Mining equipment?" Rektok growled. "They're throwing tools at us now?" The officer hesitated. "Sir, these signatures are unusual, highly coordinated." Before Rektok could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the shields flickered and died, lightning arcing through the hull. The Admiral spun toward the view screen, his compound eyes narrowing in fury. "What was that?" "Localized storm, sir," the officer stammered. "It appears to have originated from—" Another surge of lightning struck the ship, sending sparks flying. On the tactical display, a message appeared, carved into the debris by plasma cutters. "Storms coming." Across the asteroid belt, humanity's forces moved with surgical precision. Mars's storm generators unleashed electrical chaos, disabling Zeroth cruisers one by one. On Europa, Dr. Patel's boom sonic cannon fired in rhythmic bursts, the deep bass line of dubstep shattering enemy hulls like glass. Titan's spicy air warfare drones filled the smaller ships with choking gas, forcing Zeroth crews to retreat. And then there was Vaughn's swarm. Hundreds of mining drones, armed with plasma cutters and synchronized to Ride of the Valkyries, descended on the remaining Zeroth ships. The drones weaved through enemy fire, their movements eerily coordinated. Every laser, every strike was perfectly timed to the music, creating a symphony of destruction. On the lead capital ship, Admiral Rektok watched in horror as his fleet was dismantled piece by piece. His tactical officer turned to him, panic in his voice. "Sir, their tactics are incomprehensible. We can't predict their movements." "Then outgun them," Rektok snapped. "Destroy everything in sight." But the Zeroth's brute force was no match for humanity's creativity. The holographic projections from Sentinel Station 7 created thousands of false signals, confusing the Zeroth targeting systems. Their weapons fired blindly into empty space, while the real threats danced around them, untouchable. On Sentinel Station 7, Marcus watched the chaos unfold with grim satisfaction. The Zeroth fleet was in disarray, their once imposing ships reduced to smoking wrecks. But Marcus wasn't done yet. "Lex," he said, "send them a message." The AI complied, broadcasting a single phrase across all Zeroth frequencies. "You should have finished the job." The message was accompanied by a visual, an image of Earth's remains overlaid with the defiant words, "We're still here." By the time the battle ended, the Zeroth fleet was shattered. The surviving ships limped away, their crews too terrified to continue the fight. Humanity had done the impossible. They'd turned the tide against a vastly superior enemy, and they'd done it with tools, grit, and a deeply unhinged sense of humor. On Sentinel Station 7, Marcus raised his coffee mug in a silent toast. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time since Earth's destruction, victory felt possible. "Lex," he said, a satisfied smile on his face, "prepare a tactical summary for the colonies." "Summary prepared," the AI replied. "Shall I include the playlist from today's operation?" Marcus laughed. "Absolutely. Let them know we're just getting started." The Zeroth survivors fled the asteroid belt in disarray, their capital ships limping like wounded animals. Their once imposing fleet was now a collection of broken hulls, shattered weapons, and flickering energy shields. Every communication channel crackled with panic and confusion. Marcus Kane, seated at the command console of Sentinel Station 7, sipped his coffee as he watched the chaos unfold on the tactical display. "Lex," he said, his voice tinged with satisfaction, "what's the status of the retreat?" The AI's voice, as steady as ever, responded, "The remaining Zeroth vessels are retreating beyond the asteroid belt. Estimated fleet loss, 78%. Remaining forces are uncoordinated and demoralized." Marcus smirked. "And their command ship?" "Admiral Rektak's vessel is holding position just outside the battle zone. It appears they are attempting to regroup." He leaned back in his chair, swirling the last dregs of coffee in his mug. Typical. Always the last to run, hoping to salvage some dignity. On his screen, the colony leaders appeared, each of them bruised but victorious. Colonel Elias from Mars, Dr. Patel from Europa, Commander Lin from Titan, and Director Vaughn from the asteroid belt all wore expressions of grim pride. Their makeshift armies had done the impossible, crippled the might of the Zeroth fleet with ingenuity and pure audacity. "Well done, everyone," Marcus said. "We've sent them running, but we're not done yet." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Not done? We just decimated their fleet. What more do you want?" Marcus's grin was sharp. "I want them to remember this for the rest of their miserable existence. Patel, how's the boom sonic cannon holding up?" The scientist adjusted his glasses, his face lit with a faint smirk. "Fully operational. We've been experimenting with a new track, something a bit heavier." "Good," Marcus replied. "And Vaughn, are the drones ready for another run?" "More than ready," Vaughn said, cracking his knuckles. "We've upgraded their maneuvering algorithms. This time they'll spell out something extra special." "Perfect," Marcus said, leaning forward. "Here's the plan. We take out Rektak's flagship. Completely. I want them to leave this system knowing we're not just survivors. We're the nightmare they'll never escape." Lin chuckled. "You're really leaning into this whole spite as a strategy thing." Marcus raised his mug in mock salute. "It's the human way." The Zeroth flagship, Dominance Eternal, hovered on the edge of the battlefield, its hull scarred but intact. Admiral Rektak paced the bridge, his mandibles clicking in frustration. Reports from his fleet poured in. Ships lost, crews missing, and communications flooded with incomprehensible human messages. Every tactical model had failed to predict this level of resistance. "Status report!" Rektak barked. His tactical officer, his voice tight with fear, replied, "Shields at 45%. Weapon systems operational but limited. Scanners detect incoming anomalies, highly irregular movement patterns." "Anomalies?" Rektak snapped. "Speak plainly." The officer hesitated. "Mining drones, sir. Hundreds of them." Rektak's compound eyes narrowed. "Destroy them. All of them." The Zeroth weapon systems roared to life, plasma beams slicing through space. But the drones, moving with eerie precision, danced around the attacks. They closed in on the flagship, their plasma cutters igniting in unison. From the ship's external speakers, a deafening tune blasted into the void. Ride of the Valkyries. The drones swarmed, carving intricate patterns into the flagship's hull. Words began to take shape, their glowing cuts forming a message visible from the asteroid belt. Nice try. From Sentinel Station 7, Marcus and the colony leaders watched the spectacle unfold with delight. The drones darted and spun, their synchronized movements creating a chaotic ballet of destruction. Every Zeroth countermeasure was met with another wave of human ingenuity. "Europa, it's your turn," Marcus said. Dr. Patel's voice came through, calm and confident. "Firing the boom sonic cannon." From Europa's surface, a massive pulse of low-frequency sound waves surged through space. The invisible force slammed into the flagship, sending violent tremors through its hull. On the tactical feed, Marcus watched as panels buckled and lights flickered. Patel's grin was audible in his voice. "Bass drop successful." "Now, Mars," Marcus said. Colonel Elias nodded, activating the storm generators. A swirling vortex of energy appeared inside the Zeroth flagship, arcing lightning bolts through its corridors. Zeroth crew members scrambled for cover, their screams echoing through intercepted communications. "Titan," Marcus said, his tone crisp. "Release the drones." Commander Lin's drones launched from Titan's surface, their tear gas canisters spreading a thick, acrid fog through the flagship. Zeroth officers coughed and stumbled, their exoskeletons slick with condensation. The chaos aboard the Dominance Eternal reached its peak. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Rektok gripped the edge of his command console, his mandibles clicking furiously. "What is happening?" he roared. "Sir," the tactical officer stammered, "the humans are rewriting our navigation system. They've replaced all commands with something called—" The officer paused, clearly reluctant to continue. "With what?" Rektok demanded. "Lyrics, sir, to an Earth song called Never Gonna Give You Up." The bridge fell silent except for the tinny sound of the song playing on every console. Rektok's mandibles twitched uncontrollably. "This is not war. This is insanity." On Sentinel Station 7, Marcus leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smirk on his face. "Lex, send them the final message." The AI complied, broadcasting a single phrase across all Zeroth channels. "Operation Hold My Beer complete. You're welcome." The drones delivered the coup de grace, their plasma cutters slicing through the flagship's core systems. Explosions rippled through the vessel as its engines overloaded. The Dominance Eternal fractured, its massive form collapsing into a cascade of debris. The aftermath of the battle was almost serene. The Zeroth fleet, or what remained of it, fled the solar system, their transmissions filled with desperation and shame. Humanity had not only survived, they had sent a message to the galaxy that Earth's destruction was not the end. In the asteroid belt, Vaughn's drone spelled out one final message in glowing plasma: "Don't mess with Earth." On Sentinel Station 7, Marcus watched the debris field with a deep sense of satisfaction. The colony leaders appeared on the screen, their faces reflecting a mixture of pride and exhaustion. "We did it," Elias said, his voice thick with emotion. Marcus nodded. "We did, but this is just the beginning. The Zeroth won't forget what happened here, and neither will we." Patel grinned. "Next time, we'll be even more prepared." Lynn smirked. "And maybe throw in a few more glitter bombs for good measure." Vaughn laughed. "You know, for the aesthetic." Marcus raised his coffee mug, his expression resolute. "To humanity, to surviving, and to making sure no one ever dares to underestimate us again." As the others raised their own toasts, Marcus turned to the observation window. The fragments of Earth sparkled in the distance, a reminder of what had been lost and what humanity had fought to preserve. Their homeworld might be gone, but their spirit was unbreakable. "Lex," he said quietly, "make a note for the records. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't technology or firepower. It's spite, creativity, and an unshakable will to survive." "Noted, Commander," Lex replied. Would you like to include the playlist from today's operation in the historical archive? Marcus laughed softly. Absolutely. Let the galaxy remember how we fought, loud, proud, and just unhinged enough to win.